You are living in this fast-paced world, and perhaps you don't realize it, but it's stealing away the most essential parts of you. Time passes, everything feels urgent, and even surrounded by voices, you feel alone. Your soul cries out for something that no one can provide. You pray, but feel like the heavens are closed, that your words return empty. And inside, there's an exhaustion that you can't explain. Have you ever wondered why it seems that God is silent? Why everything inside you cries out, but nothing changes? Perhaps the question that really hurts is, does he even see me? You can't keep pretending that everything is okay when you know it's not. You want answers, you want direction, you want to hear from God. And he wants to be heard too. But there's such a loud noise inside you that even you can't hear it. The anxiety, the fears, the traumas that you've tried to push under the rug, all of it has stifled your ability to believe. You've lost the courage to wait. You no longer know how to believe that something can happen for you. And here's the truth that you might be avoiding. Prayer has become mechanical. You say the words, but you no longer feel anything. You're praying with your mouth, but your heart is exhausted. And behind this exhaustion is an unspoken question. Does God still perform miracles? He does, but not in the way you want. Not in the timing you want. God doesn't move to the beat of your hurry. He doesn't bend to your schedule. But he does move, and that cannot be overlooked. He sees what lies behind your tears. He knows what you can't even express to yourself. He understands the silence that screams when you lie down at night and try to appear strong. But you don't have to hide this from him anymore. Do you know what's missing? Desire. Not that superficial desire of wanting everything to be resolved yesterday. I'm talking about that burning spiritual desire that consumes you from within and makes you want to throw yourself on the floor, truly, as if you can no longer bear it. This kind of desire isn't natural. It doesn't come from human effort. It is born when you stop pretending, when you surrender, when you admit that you need help, that you need to be healed from the inside, that you need him. As long as you insist on controlling the process, you will continue to not understand why everything seems stuck. God doesn't work in closed environments. He needs the space you have yet to give. You want change, but you don't want to let go. You want miracles, but you don't want to surrender. Yet God only responds to what is offered wholeheartedly. When he finds sincerity, something starts to happen. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Most people want to see to believe, but faith doesn't work that way. Faith is when you carry within you a certainty that has not yet manifested. That is substance. When you begin to pray with that certainty, the invisible starts to take form, the impossible starts to bend. And even without noticing, you change before the circumstances do. You may be thinking that you have no more strength, that you've tried everything, but you've only tried up to the point where you thought you could go. Now is the time to push past that point, to pray until you surpass the limits of comfort, to persist even without enthusiasm, because while you pray, something is being built. Each prayer is a brick. You may not see it, but it is being done, not on the outside, on the inside. What you call waiting, God calls preparation. While you despair from not seeing the door open, God is shaping you so that when it does open, you are ready to step in. You don't need to understand everything, but you need to keep going. You need to insist, even if you cry, even if everything seems confusing, even if the silence of God seems deafening. Prayer is not a monologue, it's not a ritual, it's a confrontation. A place where your defenses fall, where God doesn't give you what you want, but what you need. And sometimes what you need isn't a miracle. It's being molded, it's having your pride broken, it's being transformed from the inside out. Some people pray expecting God to change everything around them, but God, most of the time, changes you. And then, what's around you no longer has the same power. When you change, you become the answer. Healing begins within. Restoration doesn't come from the outside in, it comes from the inside out. You need to stop measuring prayer by visible results. Faith isn't bargaining, it's not a trade. Faith is a surrender. And when you learn to pray with that true surrender, God responds. He always responds, just not always with what you want, but always with what you need the most. It could be peace, direction, courage, or simply the assurance that He is there. And that changes everything. You wonder if it's worth it to keep praying. And I tell you, not praying is giving up. It's abandoning yourself. It's accepting that everything continues the way it is. You know you can't live like this anymore. You know you need more. You need Him. And He is closer than you think. He's just waiting for you to stop the speeches and start being real. It's not about sounding pretty. It's about opening your heart, talking to Him like you talk to the one you trust the most. And if you don't trust anyone, start by telling Him that. He can take it. He wants to hear it. He understands what you still haven't figured out about yourself. And if you give Him space, He will do what only He can do. The secret place of prayer isn't a physical corner. It's a state of mind. It's when you unplug from the world and come before Him without masks, without a script, without filters. It's in this place that He transforms, that He speaks, that He renews, that He heals the wounds you've hidden even from yourself. There's a process happening inside you, even when you don't see it. Doubt is being confronted, pain is being addressed, faith is being strengthened, hurry is being broken down, and trust is being built. You have not been forgotten. You are being formed. God is creating something greater than you asked for, but for this, He needs you whole. Don't ignore the fire trying to ignite within you any longer. Feed it. Reignite what was extinguished by disappointment, by busyness, by loneliness. Start praying again, even without words, even while crying, even if you don't know where to begin. Just start. God knows every detail. He knows about the tear you wiped away alone, the effort that nobody saw, the pain that nobody understood. You don't need to show strength right now. You just need to be sincere. Yield again. Pray truthfully, and when you least expect it, that substance will be there, that certainty that you don't know where it comes from, but that brings you peace in the midst of chaos. That conviction that God has already heard, even if nothing has changed yet. And when that certainty comes, you will realize that you no longer need to see to believe, because the faith born from pain is the faith that sustains you when everything seems to be against you. This is the faith that moves the heavens, that opens doors, that brings miracles, that transforms your life completely. Write in the comments, God loves me, if you are sure of the great love He has for you. And you know, when this faith starts to grow, it makes no noise. It doesn't come with a spectacle. It doesn't show itself. It just remains, silent, firm, unwavering. You might be walking through the valley with everything around you screaming that there's no way out, but inside, something insists. A certainty that won't let you give up, a whisper from God that says, keep going, even if no one understands, even if you don't understand, even if it seems too late, because when God plants faith in someone, the size of the mountain doesn't matter. It yields, in His time, in His way. But there's one thing you need to decide right now. Are you going to keep praying like someone who's just going through the motions? Or are you going to pray like someone who is at war? Like someone fighting for something they can't afford to lose any longer? Like someone who's saying with every fiber of their being, I won't stop until God speaks. I won't leave here without an answer. God isn't moved by your performance, but He responds to a heart that's desperate for Him, a heart that is no longer satisfied with pretty speeches, cliché phrases, or rehearsed faith, a heart that bends, that breaks, that says, enough, I can't live like this anymore. That touches heaven, that stirs God's heart. And when you reach that point, of tearing your heart open before him. It's as if something is ripped from within you. Like the veil that covered your vision begins to tear. You start to see things differently. Not because the circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. And this change is irreversible. You begin to realize that prayer wasn't just about reaching a miracle. It was about being molded, about learning to trust even without understanding, about relying on God more than on the answers, about discovering that intimacy with him is worth more than any blessing you thought you needed. It's at this point that many people give up, because they expected a result but didn't expect to be confronted. But true prayer will strip you bare. It will show you where you've been leaning. It will unveil the wounds you've ignored. It will expose the fears you've masked with superficial faith. And then comes the choice. Will you back down, or will you push forward? Will you run away, or will you let God transform you completely? This transformation hurts. You know that. You've already begun to feel it. But you also know there's no going back to what you were. Because when you start praying for real, nothing else satisfies you. Nothing else fills you up. You might try to distract yourself, run in 1,000 directions, but nothing soothes what only God can touch. It is in this place where you are alone with him, without a script, without an audience, without pretense, that faith takes form. Certainty strengthens. God's voice becomes clearer than the noise of the world. You start to hear things from him that no one has ever told you. You begin to feel the care, guidance, and security that you sought in so many wrong places. You start to see that he has always been there, that he has never left you, that while you thought you were forgotten, he was quietly building something. You begin to remember that waiting was not punishment, it was training, that his silence was not absence, it was preparation. And now you no longer seek immediate results. You seek his presence. You start to understand that being with God is more than asking and receiving. It is being. It is remaining, it is dwelling, and it is in this place of dwelling that miracles start to happen. From within to without, slowly but definitively, the fear that paralyzed you begins to lose its grip. The pain that made you silent begins to heal. The insecurity that made you doubt starts to be replaced by an unshakable conviction. You begin to walk differently, look at things differently, speak differently, not because everything has been resolved, but because you have been transformed. And when transformation happens, even the impossible loses its weight of impossibility. You start to believe with a boldness that didn't exist before. You begin to declare with authority. You start to pray as someone who knows who is listening. You pray like someone who trusts. Like someone who has seen the invisible, like someone who already carries the substance before the manifestation. Prayer is no longer just a request. It is a relationship, an intimacy, an unbreakable bond. And you begin to realize that even without immediate answers, something much greater is happening. God is building a story in you, a story that will impact others, a story that carries scars, but also miracles. You may think that your prayers are small, weak, and have no impact. But God doesn't measure by strength. He measures by surrender. A prayer made with sincerity, humility, and truth moves the heavens. A prayer made through tears in the midst of pain, made without understanding but with faith. That shakes the spiritual world. And maybe now you understand why things have been so difficult, why everything seemed stuck. Because God was calling you to a deeper place. He was breaking the crutches, cutting off the shortcuts, closing the wrong doors. Not out of malice, but out of care. Because he knew that as long as you still had alternatives, you wouldn't fully surrender. Now you have reached this point, where there is no more plan B, where you can no longer pretend that everything is fine. And that's when he begins, when you stop resisting, when you surrender, when you say, I don't know how to do this anymore, but I trust you. This kind of prayer breaks chains. This kind of prayer opens the heavens. Do you know what it means to pray until something happens inside? It's when you're no longer waiting for God to change the other person. You are willing to be transformed. You are ready to say, "Teach me to wait, teach me to trust, teach me to continue even when everything seems lost." And suddenly, what once felt too heavy begins to feel bearable, because His presence sustains, because His grace strengthens, because His voice calms. And you start to realize that the place of waiting is also a place of revelation. It's a place where God shows you what you couldn't see before. He begins to show you that while you thought you were being forgotten, He was preparing you for something that only those who go through the fire understand. You are not alone, and you never were. He is there, even when you don't feel Him, even when you can't hear Him, even when everything seems dark. He is. And that is enough. You need to stop doubting just because it hasn't happened yet. God doesn't forget His promises. He doesn't ignore tears. He doesn't disregard those who come with sincerity. But He works in His perfect timing. And the right time is not always your time, but it's the time when everything aligns, when everything is fulfilled. While you wait, pray. While you pray, trust. While you trust, stay steady. Don't let go. Don't run away. Don't retreat. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you. He is in the process. He is in the midst of the pain. He is in the silence, and He is preparing something greater than you imagined. You may be asking for healing, and He is building a new story. You may be asking for answers, and He is teaching you to listen. You may be expecting an external change, and He is refining you from within. Trust. God is at work. Even if you can't see it, even if you don't understand, you can continue from where you are, feeling scared, insecure, trying to protect yourself, or you can take the leap. You can decide today that you will no longer live a shallow faith, that you will no longer settle for a lukewarm prayer, that you will seek God with all that you have, with your flaws, with your doubts, with your pain, but with sincerity. And when you do this, you will see the impossible bend. You will see doors opening. You will see what was dry blossoming. Because true prayer, the kind that comes from a surrendered soul, has the power to move the heart of God. It has the power to change destinies. And your destiny is not fully written yet. There is more, much more, but it will depend on you. Are you ready to continue? Write in the comments, "God is my rock," if you feel He is your firm foundation in the midst of difficulties. So now it's just you and Him. Nothing in between, nothing covering up, nothing distracting, just you and God. And it's in this place where everything starts anew, where everything you thought was lost takes shape again, where pain begins to have purpose, where the whys that tormented you don't scream as loudly, because there is a peace that doesn't need to explain everything but calms everything. You're afraid to believe again, aren't you? I know. Because believing hurts when you've believed before and were disappointed. It hurts to start over when you've pieced things back together more than once. But listen, true faith is not the absence of pain. It's the courage to keep going even with it. It's getting up every day and saying, "Even so, I trust." It's holding on to the promise as if it were your very life. Not out of desperation, but out of conviction. Because when God speaks, it's not noise, it's direction. And when He promises, it's just a matter of time. But until then, you'll need to learn to live between the promise and its fulfillment. To live between what has already been declared and what is still not visible. There will be days when you wake up with enough faith to move mountains, and there will be other days when you can hardly get out of bed. That's okay. God doesn't require constant strength, but constant surrender. He doesn't want perfection, He wants consistency. Even if you have to drag yourself, go. Even in silence, pray. Even with tears, stay. You cannot let what you feel today erase what God has already said. What He said stands firm. You may have lost your breath, but the word remains alive, and if it is alive, it will bear fruit. In time. in the process, in the desert perhaps, but it will, because God does not speak by chance. He doesn't blow promises into the wind. He plants, and what he plants, he waters himself. He takes care of it himself. He fulfills it himself. You aren't too broken. You aren't too far gone. You haven't made too many mistakes. You're right in the middle, in the place where many give up. But you can't be one of them, because what he started within you hasn't finished yet. He called you to be a living witness, to carry the marks of grace on your skin, to show that the impossible is just a matter of perspective when you truly know who God is. I know you feel the weight of waiting, but what you haven't realized yet is what this waiting is producing. It's creating roots. It's deepening your faith. It's grounding you on solid ground. God doesn't want to give you something that you aren't ready to sustain. Because if he hands it to you too soon, you'll lose it. But if it's in his timing, you can sustain it, you can honor it, you can multiply it. That's why he's been working on you from the inside out. He's confronting you in areas you didn't even know were sick. He's holding up mirrors to you. He's revealing old wounds that you pretended to forget. And you know why? Because he wants to heal it all. Not halfway, not just what's visible. He wants to heal what no one else sees, what you yourself have hidden, what you've camouflaged with strength, with productivity, with busyness. You've learned to function while broken, to smile while hurting, to help others while you bleed. But God is saying it's time to stop surviving and start living. And to live, you first need to be healed. And to be healed, you need to allow yourself to open up, no longer shielding yourself with pretty speeches, just be. When you reach that point of vulnerability with God, everything changes. Because prayer is no longer a technique, it becomes your breath. You pray while washing the dishes, while driving, while crying into your pillow, while staring at the ceiling trying to understand what's happening. Prayer becomes your language with God, and he listens. He responds, not in the way you expect, but in the way you need. And when he answers, you know. You no longer need signs, no more confirmations, you just know. Because something inside you is activated, because his voice carries a weight that no other does. It doesn't create confusion. It doesn't create anxiety. It calms, it directs, it restores. This is the type of relationship he wants with you. A relationship where you don't pray just when you need something, but because you need him, because you miss him, because you've found your place there. A place where no one demands anything from you, where no one measures you, where no one compares you, where you are just you. And that is enough. When you understand this, even his no's start to make sense. Because you know he is not denying you something. He is protecting you. He is teaching you. He is preparing something better. And this trust changes the way you pray. You stop begging for blessings and begin to align with his will. And when you align, heaven moves. You have been called to something great, not because you deserve it, but because of purpose. And purpose does not depend on your current circumstances. Purpose is born before the pain, before the fall, before the struggle. You were carrying this even before you realized it. That's why the process has been so intense. Because what lies ahead requires an emotional and spiritual structure that you didn't have yet, but you are building it now. Don't try to understand everything. Just obey. Just walk. God didn't give you the map. He gave you his hand. Hold on. Trust. Let him lead you. You don't need to know the destination if you trust in who is guiding you. Just keep going. Because today's obedience is tomorrow's miracle. You may think you are alone, but you are not. There are people praying for you without knowing your name. There are battles being won in the invisible while you think you are stuck. Nothing is stuck. Everything is moving. In his timing, in his way, with surgical precision. What seems like a delay is simply a synchronization with heaven. If you knew how much God is investing in your journey, you wouldn't doubt anymore. He doesn't waste processes. He doesn't play with pain. He transforms everything, every tear, every silence, every sleepless night. Every time you thought about giving up but still stayed, everything is being recorded, and it will be reversed. What you sow now in tears, you will harvest in laughter. This isn't just talk, it's a promise. He will restore. He will multiply, he will honor, but before that he will complete what he started within you. He will establish your identity. He will seal who you are in him. He will teach you to live with firmness, with wisdom, with discernment, because those who carry a promise need to have the structure to bear its weight. So don't fight against the process. Embrace it, dive in, allow it, surrender, cry yes, question yes. But don't give up, don't retreat, because something is happening right now, something that will change the course of your story, something that will mark you forever. You won't come out of this time the same. You will come out stronger, more sensitive, more filled with God. You are being forged in the fire of prayer, and this fire doesn't burn you. It shapes you, it removes impurities, it strengthens what is real, it eliminates what is fragile, and what remains is gold, refined faith, unshakable intimacy, firm conviction, and no one can take that away from you. Don't stop, don't back down, don't abandon the altar, keep praying, even if in silence, even if without strength, even if with doubts, keep going. Because he is listening, he is responding, he is acting, and very soon, everything that is a struggle today will turn into a testimony. Everything that consumes you today will become strength. Everything that seems impossible today will be overcome, not by your ability, but by the living presence of God working in you. Write in the comments, "God is my help," if you have already experienced his aid in times of need. And when all of this is over, and it will be, you'll look back and understand. You'll realize that on that day when you thought about giving up, God was there closer than ever. That in that moment when everything seemed lost, the heavens were silently moving in your favor. You'll recognize that the answer wasn't late. It was being carefully built, brick by brick, tear by tear, prayer by prayer. You'll remember the long nights when you slept with a heavy heart, the anxiety that insisted on knocking at your door, the feeling of abandonment, of invisibility, and you'll see that each one of those pains was fertile ground for something new to be born. Because there is no desert that God allows without purpose. There is no silence that he doesn't use to teach you to truly listen. There is no absence that isn't space for the deepest intimacy that exists. The kind that trusts even without understanding. The world has taught you that you need to solve everything quickly, that you need to be strong all the time, that showing weakness is dangerous. But God is calling you to a different logic. He teaches you to pause, to rest, to depend, to recognize that the true miracle is when you don't need to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself, because you know who you are in him. And that is enough. There comes a point in the journey when you no longer seek answers just to relieve the pain, but seek the presence that sustains in the midst of pain. You no longer seek miracles just to change circumstances, but seek the voice that transforms you in the midst of them. This is true prayer. This is real life with God. It is being with him without a mask, without performance, without the need to impress. Just being, just living with him. In this place, you realize that you don't have to shout to be heard, that you don't need to do everything perfectly to be accepted, that you don't have to control everything to feel secure, because when God is your security, even chaos loses its grip on you. He changes the atmosphere within you, and when that happens, you rise up differently, you walk differently, you face life with new eyes. The faith that emerges from the desert isn't shaken by the wind. The faith that comes from the valley isn't frightened by shadows. It endures because it has already gone through fire. It has faced silence. It has walked through dark nights without losing focus. This faith doesn't feed on human promises. It feeds on the faithfulness of God, and that alone keeps it standing. It is with this faith that you will pray, not with fancy words, but with genuine words, not with formulas, but with confidence. You will pray as someone who knows the heart of the Father, as someone who understands that even before the answer, you are already secure, because you no longer depend on what you see, but on what you believe, because you believe in who God is, not just in what He can do. And when this faith takes root, you no longer pray like someone asking for help, but like someone who knows they have access. Prayer becomes communion. It becomes strength. It becomes guidance. You stop asking for doors to be opened and start thanking because they are already open, even if you can't see them. You pray with authority, not because of who you are, but because of who He is in you. This is the place where God wants to take you, a place where there's no room for anxiety because there is rest, where there's no room for despair because there is certainty, where you learn that everything built on true prayer is eternal, because prayer isn't just words that rise, it's the bridge where God descends, and when He descends, everything changes. Even if everything outside still looks the same, you know that you've changed on the inside. And when you change on the inside, the world loses its power to control you. The circumstances lose their power to paralyze you. The pressures lose their weight in dictating your steps, because now you walk guided, led, protected. You no longer need human strategies to overcome what is spiritual. You've learned to fight in the right place, in the secret, in the silence, on your knees, in the Spirit, and no one can take away what you have gained in this place. The faith you have built there will sustain you in dark days. It will remind you of who you are when the world attempts to confuse you. It will be like an anchor when everything around you is a storm. You have risen in spirit, even on your knees, even while crying, even when you feel weak. But you have risen. Because now you know that praying is not just talking to God, it's being touched by Him. It's being renewed, restored, redefined. You entered prayer as someone broken, but you are leaving as someone whole. Because God doesn't just listen, He rewrites your story at the exact point where you thought it had ended. In that moment when everything goes silent, you realize that what sustained you was not your courage, it was grace. That what upheld you was not your faith, it was His faithfulness. That what pushed you forward, even without understanding, was His hand guiding you even in the dark. And now everything makes more sense because you have been processed, treated, forged, ready to live what He has for you. You may not know what tomorrow will bring, you may not have all the answers, but now you have what is most important: a living faith, a genuine communion, a prayer that moves heaven. And that is enough. Because those who have this have everything, even when on the outside it may seem like they have nothing. And that's how God works. He begins where everything seems to have ended. He uses what the world despises to reveal what can only be understood in the Spirit. He transforms what no one expected. He lifts up what everyone has forgotten. He brings faith to life where there was once only frustration. Now it's up to you. The choice is yours. You can keep trying to do everything on your own, or you can truly surrender. You can pretend that everything is fine again, or you can open your heart like never before. You can choose the superficial prayer that you're accustomed to, or you can dive into the prayer that truly transforms you. But know this: God is ready. Not to judge you, but to lift you up. Not to demand from you, but to embrace you. Not to point out your mistakes, but to restore your identity. He still writes stories of new beginnings. He still responds with power. He still acts in silence. And He is still hearing every word that comes out of your mouth, even when you say nothing. You didn't get this far by chance. There is a plan. There is a construction. There is a purpose being fulfilled in the unseen. And when the right time comes, everything that now seems confusing will reveal itself as a perfect part of something only God could create. Because genuine prayer never returns empty. It comes back in the form of a miracle, in the form of peace, in the form of transformation. And the impossible has already begun to give way. Because when someone prays with sincerity, the impossible cannot resist. It recognizes the sound of a living faith. It recognizes the sound of someone who has returned to the altar. It recognizes the sound of someone who has decided to trust, even when everything screams the opposite. And you right now are that sound. You are that faith. You are that woman who rose up to live everything that God has prepared. Write in the comments, "God is my shepherd," if you trust that He cares for you at all times. Share this blessed video so it can touch and help others like you and me. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of our community. Here are 2 more videos for you to continue your spiritual journey and growth in faith. Thank you, and may God bless you all. See you soon.